In a second, I'm going to ask Catherine to come up and formally introduce our speaker, but I feel compelled to answer the question that dozens and dozens of Kiwanians have asked me, and more than a few Rotarians, which is, how in the hell did you get the CEO of Revlon to come down from New York to speak to the Kiwanis Club? Well, the simple answer is I asked her, but it's more complicated than that. We have a White House Fellows connection. I was the first White House Fellow from Alabama in 1978-79. I served as a special assistant to Vice President Mondale in the Carter White House. I got involved in the Alumni Association, so in 83, 84, I was president of the association, and I discovered if you're president, you get to serve on the commission that picks a new class of White House Fellows. So my good friend Ken Simon back there, I helped select Ken in 1983, 84. Through another White House fellow, I got introduced about 40 years ago to Bill and Hillary Clinton. And on New Year's Day of 1992, Bill Clinton asked me personally to chair his Alabama campaign, and I did, and as everybody knows, he won. So I get the call from Little Rock, and they said, well, what job do you want in D.C. in the new administration? I said, hey, I spent 10 years there. After my fellows year, I was counsel or staff director to 4 different committees or subcommittees of the Senate. I worked in the Washington office of 2 Fortune 50 companies, RCA and GE. My wife, who's here, was the personnel officer at the U.S. Supreme Court. I said, we've done Washington, but I would like to be on the White House Fellows Commission. They made that happen, and so for 8 years, I got to help select the best and the brightest in the Clinton administration. 1997, we selected a brilliant brain surgeon from Michigan, Dr. Sanjay Gupta. He spoke to Kiwanis on December 2nd. The following year, we selected an absolutely outstanding young woman who had leadership potential all over her, and that is our speaker today. Michelle, I'm glad to have played a tiny little part in helping you climb the ladder of success, which you were going to do anyway, but the White House Fellowship helped speed that up a little bit. I have followed your career with great interest. You've done some amazing things. I do not know why you accepted my invitation to speak here today, but I'm very glad you did. Catherine, come on up and formally introduce this young lady.
Thank you, John. Well, it is my great honor, thanks, John, for asking me to introduce Michelle Peluso, the Chief Executive Officer of Revlon Group Holdings, LLC, and a member of its board of directors. Revlon is approaching its 94th birthday on March 1st and manufactures products sold in 150 countries. At the helm of one of our country's most recognized companies, Ms. Peluso is spearheading a bold evolution of Revlon, championing consumer centricity, harnessing her deep experience in digital and technology to drive innovation, and cultivating a culture of leaders, exceptional in both craft and character. As a seasoned brand builder, she is passionate about unlocking the full potential of Revlon's powerful collection of brands, ensuring they remain deeply loved for generations of beauty and wellness consumers to come. Prior to Revlon, Ms. Peluso was the Executive Vice President and Chief Customer and Experience Officer at CVS Health, where she oversaw the end-to-end consumer experience across all channels, including leading the brand and marketing efforts. She also previously served as Co-President, Pharmacy and Consumer Wellness, where she transformed the retail business across 9,000 stores. Prior to joining CVS Health, Ms. Peluso was the Senior Vice President, Digital Sales and Chief Marketing Officer at IBM. From 2016 to 2021, she oversaw marketing, digital sales, client experience, and the commercial business globally. Before joining IBM, Ms. Peluso served as Chief Executive Officer of online shopping destination Gilt Group, Inc., from 2013 until its sale to Hudson's Bay Company in 2016. She also served on Gilt's board of directors from 2009 to 2016. Before Gilt, she served as Global Consumer Chief Marketing and Internet Officer of Citigroup. She was the CEO of Travelocity and the founder and CEO of Site59, an online travel site that Travelocity acquired. She started her career as a consultant and case leader at the Boston Consulting Group in New York. Ms. Peluso earned a BA in economics from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business and an MA in philosophy, politics, and economics from Pembroke College at Oxford University as a Turin Scholar. She's a White House Fellow, as John mentioned, and served as Senior Advisor to the Secretary of Labor. She's also a member of the Conference Board's Committee for Economic Development and serves on the boards of Nike and Save the Children US. So preparing for the introduction today, I did what most of us would do. I Googled her. And the list of results was truly impressive. There were articles written about her leadership in Forbes and the Harvard Business Review, but also Vogue and Women's Wear Daily. But the article that I enjoyed the most was one that quoted Tracy Weber, a former COO of Travelocity and the co-founder of Site 59 with Ms. Peluso. And Tracy offered the following when asked to comment on Michelle Peluso's leadership. She said, Michelle's leadership style is very effective and refreshingly different in today's business world. She spends more effort than most managers on motivating her teams, getting to know the people on her teams and what motivates them, rewarding people for work well done, and even empathizing with them during difficult times or challenges. She is very human and nurturing in her leadership style. This really brings out the best in people around her and makes people want to go above and beyond to achieve success. She is also a very clear communicator, both externally and internally. She can crisply articulate our company's strategy and vision and what we need to do to get there. Her ability to set clear direction and to motivate people results in high-performing teams and exceptional business results. Please help me welcome Michelle Peluso.
Oh my goodness, thank you. You could have just said I work really hard and I'm a mom. Much shorter. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you very much, John. And I'll tell you the real reason I said yes. In 1998, when I was interviewing for the White House Fellowship, I was so nervous. I think I was like 26 years old. I was super nervous, and everyone around me seemed so impressive. And I went to the breakfast, and I met this very charming Southern lawyer, Mr. Saxon. And he really put me at ease, and that lasted all about 15 minutes until I met him in the interview room 15 minutes later. And then the lawyer came out, and I have lived in fear of him ever since. So when he asks, I say yes. I couldn't possibly say no. So I think I'm still living with the scars of those interviews. But it's really, truly a pleasure to be here. And I thought actually today I would spend some time on leadership principles. And most of all, it's so much more fun to hear from you and get questions from you all. So I will try to be relatively brief and leave it all for questions. So about 5 years ago, the then powerhouse CEO of CVS Health, Karen Lynch, asked her executive team what seemed to be a very simple exercise. She said, can you each write down your leadership philosophy? And as a passionate student of leadership who thinks about these topics all the time, I thought, gosh, this is going to be simple. And I wrote, and I wrote it up, and I wrote, and I wrote it up. And 5 years later, I would say it is still a living document, because leadership should always be a journey, and it should always be kind of a living experience. But the thing that I finally crystallized, because the show has to go on and I had to turn something in, was the following, actually 5, and I've added a 6th over the years. So the first one, live aligned to your North Star. And I learned this one when I was first starting out in business, when I started a company called Site 59. And this is right after the White House Fellowship, the very beginning of the internet. And it was fascinating time, because all of a sudden we had access to so much data. We could see every click, everything everyone was doing. And what occurred to me at that moment, and has stuck with me ever since, is my North Star is the consumer. Always deeply understanding the consumer, what she wants, what she feels, what she needs. And what that has given to teams in many industries, banking and healthcare and fashion and now beauty, it's given them the freedom to understand kind of the clarity of purpose of our organization. I'll always start out meetings, if someone pitches me on a new idea or a new investment, they can expect me to grill them first and foremost about the consumer experience. How is this better? How is this different? Could somebody else do this? How are the consumers going to respond? How are we going to price? So how's it going to show up on the shelf? What if they search online? What's the experience in the store? I'm passionate about really understanding that. And if I think whatever industry I've been in, if I think we can do something that is better and exciting and energizing, then I'll move to the next step to ask about the financials, the operations, the process, all that other good stuff, which is, of course, fundamental. But for me, coming at the very early stage of the internet, the consumer's always been my North Star, and every team knows that. Every team knows that. The second one, lead for the betterment of others. Any military, former military people in the audience? Thank you for your service. I was a young woman at West Point, which was not too far from our home, and I saw carved on a wall, lead for the betterment of others. And I was young, but that phrase just struck me in a way that sat with me for a long time. Partially because I had this incredible blessing growing up. I got to watch my dad. My dad was an entrepreneur, and he was and is passionate about client service, but most of all, his team. So I remember being, 8 years old, 9 years old, at the breakfast table, the lunch table, the gym. He would handwrite notes to his teammates, his colleagues. He would make sure everybody had equity. He would give freely, not just for himself. When we had company picnics, he would grill me for hours and my brother and sister about making sure we knew every person's name and their kids' names and their wives' names and their spouses' names. And he would say, when we approach these company picnics, it's your job to make sure everybody feels welcome and that they feel like this is the celebration I want it to be. So this idea of lead for the betterment of others, something I saw on a wall at the West Point, to something I saw lived every day by my dad, has always been kind of profound part of what I think about leadership. And, it's simple to say, but to really embrace that and to take the time to know everyone on your team, what is it they want, what is it they need, to always be kind of coaching for, to believe that leading for the betterment of others is not just one thing you do as a leader, it's the thing you do as a leader. The thing you do, making sure that you're always thinking about how can people be better? How can the next generation rise? How can you create an organization that is constantly learning, constantly improving, and accomplishing really profound goals? So that's always been my obsession in every job I've had. And the fun thing is, when my dad retired, we were sitting at the dinner table, Thanksgiving dinner table, lots of people, and my dad clanged his glass. It was far more impressive than this gong, this bell. He clanged his glass, and he told us that he was retiring. And I could see the smile of what I thought was relief on his face and my mom's face. And we all said, "Dad, that's great. You've worked so hard. It's amazing. This is wonderful." Without missing a beat, he said, "And I'm starting a new company tomorrow." He was 66, 7. He did start a company, another environmental engineering company, and because he had sold this company after all these years to a big company, and he just wasn't happy with the way the big company was working. He started this new company. The next day, pretty much the entire company, his old company, all sort of sent in resumes to work for him again. And to me, that's really the hallmark of being a great leader of other people, that you're followed. And I've had the great blessing in my career of having many people follow me. Tracy Weber, matter of fact, she and I worked together at BCG. She helped me start Site 59. She went to Travelocity with me when it was acquired, and she became president. She went to Citigroup with me and became head of digital for North America. She went to Gilt with me and became president. She went to IBM with me, CBS with me. So it was wonderful to hear you bring her up, because she's such a special leader. And I love, over the course of my career, that I've had the chance to work with certain people over and over again. Third, be a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all. This quote comes from Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. And another thing that always really stuck with me, I've had the great fortune of being on the board of Nike, and I have seen up close really exceptional board members like Tim Cook over now, 13 years, I think it's been. Always ask great questions, not assume you know something, always ask great questions. And that time at Microsoft was a really fundamental time. The torch was being passed from Steve Ballmer to Satya, and he wanted to reset the culture, and he did it with that one phrase: be a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all. I think it's always been true. I don't think you can lead from a hierarchical way from the top, but I actually think it's more true now than ever, because technology, and I have always been at the forefront of technology, technology, and now AI is remaking the landscape over and over and over again. And all of our skills, my skills, are becoming obsolete on a regular basis. And so the thought that, you reach a certain position and you know everything and you tell everybody what to do and that cascades down the organization, I don't think that ever worked, never worked for me. But I think it's especially foolhardy now in this moment where we really do have to create a culture of learning, a culture of curiosity, a culture of vulnerability, of admitting what you don't know. I love that when I was at IBM, we used to have to train in all sorts of complicated technologies. And so on Sunday mornings, Thursday nights, Tuesday nights, whatever it is, my kids would often see me at the kitchen table while they were doing their homework, studying AI, cloud computing, quantum computing, and oftentimes on Sunday morning, they would see me taking tests right alongside them. And I love that one of the lessons my kids have of their mom is someone who really always wants to learn. And I think that's why I've been able to move into different industries at the top of the companies, because I have such a deep desire to learn, and I have no problem admitting the things I don't know and being really vulnerable and clear about the stuff that I don't know and where I need other people to chime in and lead. But I think this gives our teams a lot of freedom to take risk, a lot of freedom to admit, to what they don't understand as well. So creating an environment, I think it's not only imperative because of AI, now we could talk about that if you want. I think it's imperative, but I also think it creates a culture where people are more willing to take risks, more willing to expose what they don't know, more curious, more willing to reach across the aisle to functional partners and understand problems at a more profound level. Fourth, be bold and edit to amplify. So when I was contemplating joining the Nike board, I was up at Nike for a day, and I spent several hours with the then CEO, now chair, Mark Parker. And he's an astounding human being. He has been at Nike for over 40 years. And we were sitting in his office, and there's this huge array behind him of incredible sneakers and design elements, and he's such a designer at heart. As a matter of fact, oftentimes during meetings, you see him sketching sneakers in his notebook, which is so cool. And he said to me something that has stuck with me. He said when he first became a shoe designer, he fast realized that his job was to make complicated things simpler, not to add a lot of features to every shoe, but to really think about the essence of that shoe and to reduce down to that shoe what was going to make it most powerful. And he said, it's easy. There's new materials, there's so easy to crowd the shoe, to crowd the sneaker with superfluous details. But he felt it was critical to edit, to amplify, to really maximize the impact by editing it down. He then said that when he became CEO, when Phil asked him to become CEO, which was a fascinating period in Nike's history, he of course said yes, but he was so nervous. He had not led finance, legal, supply chain, merchandising, stores, operations. He had grown up as a shoe designer and obviously leading all of design at that point, but he did not have all this experience. And he said, I didn't even know. He was like, I was almost asking friends, what does it mean to be a CEO? Never mind CEO of one of the most iconic companies in the world. And he said it occurred to him after a few weeks that edit to amplify was going to be one of the most important leadership principles for him. Because by the time ideas get to the CEO, by the time ideas are reaching Mark Parker, they're generally good ideas. I mean, people generally don't bring bad ideas they've been vetted, right? And so he said he fast realized that his job was the ability to say no and make sure that Nike was focused on the things that would matter most and that he could really edit the priority list to amplify the things that would distinguish Nike the most. And so in today's day and age where it's really easy, it's hard, so much going on, so much noise, so much happening inside of every company, having that ability as a leadership team and as a leader to edit, to amplify, I think really gives room for fewer, bigger, bolder ideas. And last, actually, I'm going to add one more bonus one in here, but play with joy. Play with joy is a great one. And my brother, who we lost to cancer, it's still super hard. He was the best at this. He was an incredible athlete, and he would jump in every field, and it was he was like Steph Curry. He just bounded onto the court with so much joy. And even when he lost, even when someone was better, he always loved the game. He took the game super, super seriously, but he took himself super lightly. And I think that's such a great principle in business, because when things are hard, they're never really as hard as bad as they seem. And when things are good, they're never really as good as they seem. And so cultivating an ability to play with joy and to bring humor and fun and warmth and authenticity to your teams, I think pays huge dividends. My bonus one for today is something called, I told you I was always editing this list. My bonus one is embrace the and. When I was growing up, I would often hear things like, well, I know Jack's a real bully and he doesn't treat people that well, but, he really delivers the results. Or, yeah, I know that Sally breaks a lot of glass and, sort of sometimes can be kind of poisonous to the culture, but she's operationally excellent. So I sort of grew up thinking, does it have to be that way? Does it have to be that way? Does it have to be a but? And I now firmly believe all of that is just bad behavior. And it's an excuse, a time-honored excuse for bad behavior. And so I fundamentally believe in embracing the and, that I should expect of myself, first and foremost, and the people around me, that we are great at our craft, and we're kind, we're good leaders, that we are expert, and we're curious, that we are passionate and convictious, and we understand and we give clear direction, and we can express vulnerably what we don't know and what we don't get right. That our job is to be exceptional in our craft and just as strong in our character. And I will tell you, there are plenty of days I don't get that right. And there are plenty of days, our team doesn't get that right. But that's the standard I hold my teams to, and I hold the Revlon culture to. That our job as leaders, the privilege of being a leader, must mean that you're great at what you do, and you're an amazing human being and a great leader of people, and kind and authentic and curious and vulnerable and human. I think that's the bar for leadership. And it's certainly the bar that I set for Revlon. We don't always get it right. I certainly don't always get it right. Sometimes I'm like, God, I was so or today. But the idea and the bar has to be embrace the and. And so just a few simple thoughts on what's been a really, really fun career journey all along, which was absolutely kickstarted by this man here to my right. And it is a great, great pleasure to be here with you today. When I was researching and first of all, hearing all about this rock star woman over here, Catherine, and seeing all the good work that the Rotary Club and Kiwanis Club do everywhere in the world, it was a real honor to be able to come here and spend lunch with you back in Alabama, only my second time, so we'll have to create some more excuses soon to get back. But thank you so much for a very warm welcome, a lovely lunch, and if you're up for it, I would be more than happy to take questions. Thank you. All right, I see a gentleman back there.
You started by saying you wished you'd been introduced as a mother. Can you tell us about your progeny?
Yes. Yes, I absolutely can. And I'm just off the red eye taking my son to the Super Bowl. So it's been, which was so fun. So we have two children. Our daughter Auden is 17 and our son Cole is 16. And Auden is a lot like me. She's on it, she's organized, she's disciplined. Cole is a total scam artist and has me wrapped around his finger. He actually has a business. He is a DJ and event planner, and sort of knows everybody. He knows he can charm his way through anything. And so, they are a lot of fun. She kind of keeps him in line a little bit. They're best friends, which is pretty amazing. They're very close. And she kind of keeps him in line, and he kind of pushes her out of her comfort zone. So my husband and I are super, super lucky. And she's a junior, and we're thinking about colleges and all that good stuff. So if anyone has any great ideas, do let us know. But they're amazing, and they are humbling. And whenever I think I'm doing really well, I just sit down for dinner and get that good teenage eye roll, and it just brings me right back. So. But we were just back from the Super Bowl. I turned down, he had emailed me about coming, and another company, and I said no because we had our board in Barcelona, and I was taking a flight back, and it would have been like turning to San Fran and red-eyeing back. And so I said, I just can't make it work. But he saw my email, and this was the scam artist part of him, and he immediately was like, Mom, it's my birthday, this would be the only birthday gift I'd ever want. And needless to say, we went to the Super Bowl. And but he was so funny. He had memorized every bio of everyone we were going to meet. And he was like, just off talking to CEOs left, right, and center, and athletes. And so I was like, I'm going to make this kid my chief of staff. He's just that good. So thank you for asking. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for coming today. We really appreciate it. I want to know a little bit more about Revlon. It's such an iconic brand.
Yeah.
So how do you continue that legacy while making the changes needed with your consumers?
Oh, well, you just nailed it in the strategy. So Revlon is an incredible brand, and we have a bunch of amazing brands underneath it. Revlon, which is approaching 94 years old. Elizabeth Arden, which is turned 115 years old in September. Now, that was a company, Elizabeth Arden, that was founded by a woman, an immigrant, who came to New York without money, actually, believed that women should have scientifically backed beauty and wellness, and started her company, and of course her famous Red Door Salon. She actually worked for the government, helped get Jews out of Germany. They were not Jewish. Her sister, who was Jewish, or was not Jewish either, ended up going to a prison camp as part of all of this. But she was one of the world's first leading female CEOs. So every day I wake up thinking about these iconic women and the story, and just how much I owe the next generation of Revlon consumers and our team a bright Revlon future. I hear her voice all the time. There's a great book, Becoming Elizabeth Arden, which is a wonderful read. But I think the brands had been through some rough time. There were 2 or 3 decades where Revlon just took on way too much debt, and frankly, there was a lot of bad behavior. And Revlon went through bankruptcy a few years back. And so when they called me sort of post-bankruptcy, all the debt had been, most of the debt had been wiped out and the old structure, and called me. And, these are brands I've always loved, and it's right in my hometown of New York City. It was hard not to jump and say yes. And so our job at Revlon is actually complicated but really simple. The first is, for every brand, we have to really obsess the consumer. Of course, you'd expect me to start there. We've been doing a ton of work to understand brand by brand the demand landscape, what consumers want, what they need, where the brand has an authentic right to win, what's the new innovation that's driving trend and growth. That's been an anchor, and we've done some terrific work. Next, innovating at scale. We've sped up our innovation process, really anchored in those consumer demand maps, and are accelerating our journey to bring best-in-class products to consumers everywhere in the world. Third, regaining the trust of our omni-channel partners. And I say omni-channel because we have to be way more digital than ever before. Through all the years of bankruptcy and debt, Revlon had lost its way with key retailers. I knew this when I was running CVS. So we've been on a mission, retailer by retailer, to win back their trust. Thankfully, that's going well, and I have a lot of experience on what it takes to be exceptional in their eyes. Fourth, elevating our team, leading for the betterment of others. Done a ton of work instilling learning opportunities and growth opportunities, and making sure we have the right talent and the right structure to succeed. And last but not least, fueling our future. So an enormous amount in cost-save initiatives, how we modernize with technology, all the things we can do to make sure we're freeing up money to drive bolder innovation and bolder storytelling. And I'm happy to say that we're a private company, but we did grow last year for the first time in a long time. So we had a very good first year. And we're only looking forward. We have a lot to accomplish. And, the purpose of leading these iconic brands is never lost on me. So thanks for asking. Please buy Revlon, by the way. Yes.
I think your leadership style is incredible. It's very engaging. As you're scaling companies, how do you balance this with your kind of conversations and developing the business and staying authentic to yourself and motivating people to be kind?
Well, look, I think it's actually unkind to not be clear and to deliver feedback. And sometimes it's got to be very, very direct. So I had a gentleman recently, and there was a lot of challenges with his leadership style when I first came to Revlon, and I was trying so hard to get the message across. This is the bar, this is my expectation, and it was very hard for him to hear it. And so finally I actually drew a picture. It's kind of funny, but I drew a picture. I'm like, you know how I feel? This is how I feel. And I drew a picture of a boat, and I drew all of us, I'm a terrible drawer, by the way, I drew all of us rowing really hard, and there was like great, Revlon on the boat, and there's this beautiful shore, and, with a rainbow and flying birds and flowers that we're all rowing as hard as we can toward. And then there's this other shore, and I drew a picture of him standing on that shore, screaming at the rest of us we weren't doing well, and, rowing well enough. I'm like, this is actually how it feels to work with you. I'm like, it feels like you're not in the boat, and that has to change. I don't know how to say it more clearly. It has to change, or it's not going to work. And 2 months later, I had to make the hard call and have him leave. And I don't like that at all. Just to be clear, I've had to do that many times in my career, and I never like it. And I hope I never do. I hope I never do. I hope I never become so hardened that that's anything but really, really hard. But it would have been unkind to the rest of the team for me to not give very clear feedback. It would have been unkind for me to not make sure he had the message. It would have been unkind for me to not set the bar at exactly what I thought he needed to do to improve. I got him a coach. I mean, we did a lot of things. Interestingly, it turned out that there was a bunch of investigations from prior years. And so, I think sometimes, being authentic and being kind and being human is making sure that you're, sometimes I call these people morale zombies, right? Like they just suck the life out of everybody else. And when you see that, I think it's really critical as a leader that you try to coach it, you try to make it better, you give clear feedback, you change performance criteria, you change, compensation. I mean, you do all the things to send the message. This is what it takes to be good at Revlon or any company. And if it doesn't work, then you have to move. You have to, because you're putting everybody else through it if you don't. So, but that was the first for me, drawing a picture. I'm like, I don't know how to break through. I'm going to try it this way. Yes, sir.
Michelle, the concept of beauty is changing worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
So Revlon is of course a North American brand.
Actually, no. 55% of our sales is outside the U.S.
I'm getting that. So how are you doing research and developing products for Africa and Asia?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. And I would say something we're super obsessive about. I just am back from Shanghai, actually, right before Barcelona. And that's a great example where China and sort of sea beauty, I call it, is moving at such a fast pace and the quality is improving. And so one thing we believe is we cannot fracture the brand and fracture innovation country by country. That's not what Revlon's for. If you do that, then break up the company and be, 100 different companies in 100 different countries. It is critical that we have scale and innovation. And when you look around the world, 80+% of trends are very similar. Might shades change? Absolutely. But what our roadmap is let's make sure there's 80%, 90% in common. Let's get a lot of input and insight. Let's make sure they're common, and then give degrees of freedom for that last kind of like 10% or 20% that's truly unique or truly different. And so we work hard. We call it categories of ways of working, but our color cosmetics team, our skincare team, our fragrance teams, our hair teams, they have their kind of kitchen cabinet from around the world. So they're in together developing insight. When we do the consumer work, we do it in all of our major markets. But then we give ourselves the degrees of freedom for localization and personalization to make sure we matter. And so that's how we handle it at Revlon, and so far so good. Now, we're always reassessing that model. Is it changing, or things shifting? But that's impressive. And one thing I would say is oftentimes a local team will come up with something that maybe the U.S. team says, no, that's not for us. Go ahead, do it locally. 5 months later, the U.S. team is like, wait a minute, our Hispanic consumer would love that. So thank you, Mexico, for figuring that out. And we bring it back to the U.S. And we've been doing that a lot lately, too, which I love seeing. Thanks for the question. Yes, ma'am. Yes, you there. Thank you.
Thank you again for being here. So has your target audience changed through the years? Or, we kind of seen it now, but more international, but how has it changed? Are you targeting like a certain age group, or how is that?
Yeah, really good question. And I always let the consumer tell us as opposed to, figure out who we target. And so I'll give you a great example. We did in the U.S., and we echoed it in our 5 biggest markets for Revlon color cosmetics. We have lots of hair brands and other stuff, but for the color cosmetics brand that so many of us know and love, we did this demand work, and we looked at, it's a dynamic model. I won't get into all of it, but there are over 4,000 variables that get considered. And then the segmentation breaks out based on what matters most to consumers. And in the Revlon color cosmetics segmentation, there is a segment we call it efficient glamour. And it actually spans lots of ages. It's women who are passionate about looking good and being elegant and glamour and beauty. They don't want no makeup and, rosy glow. They love what makeup can do and the transformational look of makeup, but they want it at a mass price point. They want it to be easy. They want it to understand. So we call that group efficient glamour. And as we were looking back to say, well, is it authentic for us? Is it right for Revlon? You look back at all of Revlon's past, and it's always stood for kind of color and transformation, elegance, the unforgettable campaign with all the supermodels in the world, one of Revlon's sort of, I think, finest moments, but even moments way back in the day with Elizabeth Taylor and Fire and Ice and, Cherry in the Snow, all these iconic brands. Revlon's always stood for sort of bold color transformation. And so that's the kind of work we do brand by brand. And then interestingly, in that case, it's not about age target. It's really about targeting this mentality and this, the psychology of people who love beauty and are passionate about it and passionate about color and transformation, but want to make sure it's efficient and well priced. Great question. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Wine with everything is a good one. It's a good one. Yes. Oh, that's like doubly good. Yes.
But that's the basis of my question. I have cousins and whatever nieces go to Sephora.
Yes.
A zillion brands.
There are.
And I'll say, I'll go out shopping later, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You can go to the drugstore.
And get it cheaper.
But I do shop at all price points.
Yeah.
But how are the big box stores now that
Uh-huh.
so many different brands in them? How does that impact what you're trying to do?
Yeah, great question. A sophisticated question. So you're clearly a beauty lover. Look, I think there's almost like two sides to your question. One side is there's so many brands and there's so much competition, and that is very true. But what's also very true is there's a lot of brands that kind of come and go, and the Sephora model is bring in new brands, get them to 50 or 60 million, bring in the next new brand. So you often see, so we have this big advantage of scale, and that's a really important advantage for us. But retailers, whether you're CVS and you're a drugstore, whether you're Walmart, whether you're Amazon, whether you're, maybe not Amazon, whether you're Sephora, Ulta, they are more and more obsessed about following that consumer journey. And that consumer, her consumer at Sephora, she is not shopping one channel, one store, she's so all over the map. She's on TikTok, she's influenced, she's on Instagram, she goes to CVS, she picks up something, she's back in Sephora on a weekend, she's trying something new, she orders on, replenishes on Amazon. So our job really has to be to not think about the channel or the store, but think about that consumer journey and make sure we're showing up in the right moments. And so for certain partners, like I would say Walmart, which is doing really, really well in general, Walmart has leaned in heavily to understanding digital, to thinking about how AI transforms the shopping experience. And so when we work with Walmart, we're really leaning in on those dimensions. When we talk to Ulta and others, it's really about exploration, and they want firsts and new things. And so we have to really lean into that. And CVS wants that, incredible efficiency, the promotional calendar, and the scale of operating across 9,000 stores. So we've got to understand our customers as well as we understand our consumers and make sure we're matching. But look, beauty is hyper competitive. And so, you sleep with one eye open. It's a good thing for all that retinol product Elizabeth Arden has. Keeps me young, despite the lack of sleep. So do you have time for maybe one or a couple more questions? Yes, ma'am.
AI question.
Sure.
You mentioned Learn It All. and
Yes.
all that. What concerns you most about AI right now?
Yeah. Well, a lot of things. First of all, let's talk about all the good stuff, right? I think like any evolution in technology, we're finding out so many new things at such a fast pace. And I'm bullish that AI will reshape how we find diagnoses for really hard diseases, how we learn, and how we fix and solve things that seem intractable right now. I do think it's going to reshape most of our lives and most of our work lives in terms of, if you're a beauty company, how we assess consumer research, how we design packaging, how we think about formulations, how we do creative and testing and copy, writing, how we actually have, really strong supply chains and inventory balances that are even more productive. So I do think that AI is at a very early stage, but it is moving quickly. And when I compare it to the rate and pace, remember I went through digital and then I did mobile and social, the rate and pace is different. And I don't think it's just because I'm older, but I think the rate and pace is different. And I do think it's remaking, industry after industry. And I think that will continue. Having said that, as a senior leader, there's some things that are really important to me. Number one, and this is geeky stuff, but we have to make sure we understand the data sources. We have to make sure we understand how the models are being trained. And I learned this way back in the days at IBM, but it is garbage in, garbage out. And so obsessing kind of the data models that are powering these large language models, which are powering AI, is really, really important as a company. There's a great anecdote from the early AI days of Amazon using AI because they get hundreds of thousands of resumes to become developers at Amazon. And they trained an AI model to search all of these incoming resumes and to sub-select the best. And lo and behold, it did a great job. They sub-selected the best. It's just that they were all men. And why? Because the model they had trained it with was the past. And the past, actually, engineers have historically been predominantly men. And something about that model, which was fed by a lot of successful engineer at Amazon resumes, then kind of kept spitting and just taking away Black, Latino, women, over and over in favor, especially of Asian men and Indian men. So without the right data, without interrogating the data and understanding that, you can memorialize the problems of the past in a way that you didn't even think or expect. So that's the first thing. Second thing is there's a tremendous amount of sort of legal issues around all of this too. So IP and, we've got some great lawyers in the room, but making sure that we're all really thoughtful about the changing law around all of this. Third, I actually think it's important brand by brand to really have the governance conversation about what do you want AI to do and what do you want humans to do. Really, so for instance, at Revlon, I want the big, bold brand ideas to be human creation. I want to make sure can we use AI to amplify, put them in different languages, show them in different ways? Yes. But I think at Revlon, it's important that we're really thinking, because it's such a human beauty brand. So we work brand by brand to say, what are the guardrails? Where do we want AI to be working and where do we not? Those are important philosophical conversations, and they take time. And codifying it, writing it down, I think is really important. There are issues on unfortunately, security and privacy, because oftentimes you're working with a company that's working with 5 or 6 other companies that's working with 5 or 6 other companies. And so, we have a governance model on privacy and security to make sure we're always understanding, especially in today's day and age of cyber always being such a challenge. What are the right audit capabilities we have of partners? What are the things we expect when we're writing our contracts? And that stuff is changing all the time. So those are just a few things that I think are important guardrails and safeguards as we all approach this next era of AI. Great question. Time for one more. Anyone want to close this out? Yes, ma'am. Oh, all right.
It's up here. You want me to look?
Yeah, you can. You can just rip it apart. There's so many great Revlon products. Can I give you 5? Didn't I say edit to amplify? Breaking that one right now. Elizabeth Arden retinol and HBR capsules. They really, really do a wonder. You put them on at night, look 5 years younger. I need it with all my travel, so that is a luxurious, lovely, wonderful product. Revlon Rum Raisin is a cult classic, recently revived by Kim Kardashian, which is always nice. And it's just like one of those lipstick colors that looks great on every single woman. It's just this rare magic lipstick. So I would say that. Third, Color Stay. You got to go with Color Stay. Is there a better eyeliner? I don't think so. And we test against Dior and all these other high price points, and Color Stay and blinded tests always win, so I would put that one on the list. If I were a guy, I would say American Crew Whip. You remember those pucks, any of you? American Crew pucks? Yeah, they're iconic, right? Great for your hair, so I would throw that one in. And I have one more. What am I going to do? We are about to launch we're about to launch Ice Spice's signature new fragrance. And I don't know how many Ice Spice fans we have out here, but it is amazing. And Palm Angel's coming right on the backs of that. Both are going to be fabulous fragrances. So that's what I'll add to your mix. Oh, and coming soon, we're doing an exclusive with Walmart. So coming in January of next year is going to be a new hairline that I'm super excited about. So there you go. Thank you so much for such a warm day. Thank you.